So let me introduce our legend today. Jackie Summers, man, is one of the coolest dudes I know. He's the founder of the most awarded liqueur in the world, Sorel. He is Food and Wine's Innovator of the Year. He was a James Beard finalist. He's a keynote speaker. In 2012, this is crazy to me. In 2012, he was the only Black person in America with a license to make liquor and is the first known Black person to hold a license post-prohibition, which is nuts. He's a wine enthusiast for Future 40. And if I had to name all the accolades, like we would just spend the next hour ticking them off. It is incredible. So,
Scotty, I gotta tell you, given all the people that you bring to this table, it's not that impressive.
It's pretty impressive. It's pretty impressive. Before we get started with Jackie, Kathy, kick us off. Thank you, Mike Perlow, for that awesome introduction. I just want to say that picture of Jackie and pretty much every picture we posted over the last 10 days, I have never looked that cool in my entire life. Like, does everyone want to look that freaking cool? And this is a true story. So LGO introduces me to Jackie. I talk to Jackie. I'm like, I fucking love this guy. Oh my God, I love him. I read every single thing he's written. I'm obsessed. And then I have like this panic moment because I have never tried Sorel before. And I'm like, what if I love Jackie, but I don't like Sorel? So he sends me a bottle, and I will just say, needless to say, if you look at some of the damages that have been done, needless to say, I don't like Sorel. I love Sorel, and I drink it hot. I drink it neat. I drink it in mixed drinks, and I drink it on the rocks. It is tremendous. Ladies and gentlemen, Jackie Summers.
Now you're just trying to embarrass me, man. Scotty, it is good to see you, brother.
Good to see you, my man. It's good to see you. I've got so many questions for you. Let's start with, I think one of the cool things about you is that you really, what you built is in honor of your ancestors. And I love the way you view yourself as more of a custodian for your heritage. Talk to us about the meaning behind that and how that's attached to this beautiful beverage that I'm imbibing.
The wonderful thing about Sorel is the idea behind it has been around literally for centuries. You could actually trace the use of hibiscus in Africa back thousands of years, when Africans discovered how many medicinal properties it has. It's full of antioxidants, it's an antimicrobial, it's an antifungal, it's an anti-inflammatory, and coincidentally for Valentine's Day, it's an aphrodisiac. So the Africans are making this tea and preserving it, as the Egyptians did. They would preserve tinctures and alcohol. And this becomes part of the ceremony and the tradition of all the things that they do. And then you skip forward to about 500 years ago, and the transatlantic trade starts. And now bodies and spices are being stolen from the continent of Africa and sold in ports of trade in the Caribbean. The people who engage in this practice really did try to strip all of the identity away from these individuals. They changed their names. They broke up families. They made them speak a different language and practice a different religion. They did everything they could to erase their culture. And somehow this single cultural identifier, which was affectionately known as the red drink, this thing survives. The people who preserve the knowledge of this aren't allowed to write down recipes because it's illegal to read or write for them. So you pass it on from child to parent, from grandmother to grandchild. And if you do not see a grandparent or a parent do this, you don't know how to do it. And I'll tell you another thing I know about Caribbean grandmothers. They never ever give you the full recipe. There's always something different. It's never the same. My grandfather was a trained chef. His name was Dighton Merrick. He and grandma emigrated to America in 1920 and were living in Harlem. He taught my mom and my mom taught me. So I've always known a version of this beverage. I grew up with it. I made a version in my kitchen for friends and family for almost 20 years. And I never thought twice about it, but it always seemed curious to me that this thing that I found so delicious, no one had ever tried to put it into a bottle before.
Interesting. And I love the way you pay homage to those who came before you. One of the things that has always struck me, Jackie, about you is your resiliency. Your resiliency is unbelievable. So there's so many different avenues that we can go down, and maybe we'll go down all of them. But there was Hurricane Sandy. There was a cancer scare where I think they told you had a 95% chance that you weren't going to make it.
Yes.
You had homelessness. You had to make a product that was shelf stable. And I don't know, you were at like 300 or 500 or 600 iterations before. So anyway, you're just one of these guys that gets knocked down, gets back up. Your resiliency is incredible. So whatever direction, I think as outliers, it's one of the things that's fascinating to us is how do we overcome adversity, and how do we build our resiliency? And obviously you're testament to how to do all of that.
It is true that a cancer scare in 2010 is what started me on this path. My doctors found a tumor at the size of a golf ball inside my spine. My doctor said, "We think you have an ependymoma." I said, "I don't know what that is, but it sounds like cancer." He said, "It's only cancer 95% of the time." "We need to work on your bedside manner, doc. What do you mean we think?" And he replied, "Well, it's inside your spine, so we can't do a biopsy on it." I said, "If you can't do a biopsy on it, how do you get it out?" He went, "That's easy. We're going to take a bone out of your spine." I said, I've played Jenga. Don't I need the bones in my spine? "We're going to take a bone out of your spine. We're going to take your spinal cord out through the hole we're going to make. And then we're going to perform neurosurgery on your spinal cord." Now, we're pretty sure we can remove the tumor, but there's two caveats. The first is, A, if it's what we think it is, it's usually malignant and it's already in your lymphatic system. So even if we take it out, you have maybe 6 months. The second problem is the surgery is delicate. We won't know if you have permanent nerve damage until after the fact. So there's at least a 50% chance of paralysis. You should organize your paperwork. The short version is I lived. Yay! The experience will adjust your perspective, though. I had an opportunity to think about my priorities in life, and it was a gift. It was a gift, Scotty. I had 25 years invested in corporate America, but what I really want to do is day drink. And when I could not think who was going to pay me to day drink professionally, I thought to myself, I know what I'll do. I'll take this thing I've been making in my kitchen for years, and I'll make it into an actual liquor product. How hard can it be? It turns out it's pretty difficult. The two major problems in taking something that you make in your kitchen and turning it into a product are, number one, I am not a food scientist. It took 623 failures in my kitchen before I came up with a recipe that was viable. Version 624 is basically the version that we bottle today. It's exactly based on my 2-gallon recipe, except we do it now 10,000 gallons at a time. So that was a big, big deal. The joke I tell at that point is, if you think you have an idea that's so good, no one's ever thought of it before, it's probably a terrible idea. There's probably a reason why nobody has done this before. So the interesting thing about 624 is, coincidentally, it happened to be the date of my surgery in 2010. June 24th, 2010 is when they took a tumor out of my spine. The other big problem with launching any kind of a brand is money. And it takes millions of dollars to properly launch a brand, and I do not have millions of dollars. What I am and what the people who came before me are, and why I honor them, is very, very, very stubborn. I come from persistent people. Perseverance is a thing. I say this, and I mean it with all my heart. I don't find anything that I do remarkable in light of my family. My dad was a jazz musician, played with Armstrong, Ellington, Basie, Sarah, all of the greats. My mom was a research scientist in the 1950s, doing some of the first studies on the effects of cigarette smoke in lab animals. At a time when this country didn't have a use for Black people or women. They had tremendous capacity, and they were limited in what they could do because they were fighting for civil rights. My grandparents also came to this country with skills and ability and talents, and they arrived here and they had to fight Jim Crow. I have to fight neither of those things. And it is only because I stand on the sacrifices, the mountain of sacrifice that my ancestors put before me, and the examples they gave me to follow, that I get to do this. So when we talk about persistence, I really believe that Sorel is 500 years of joy and persistence in a bottle. The joke I tell my team is, you can lose, but you only can be defeated if you quit.
So true. So true. So speaking of not quitting, so you launched Sorel, it's wildly successful. And a little storm called Hurricane Sandy comes along.
Yeah.
And tell us the story of what that did to the business, and then the rebound, the rebirth, the Phoenix.
So Hurricane Sandy dumped 6 feet of seawater in the basement of my distillery and 5 feet of seawater on the first floor. All of the product, all of the commodities, all of the machinery was devastated. And the building was 160 years old. The building took major structural damage. Insurance did not pay a dime. FEMA did not pay a dime. FEMA actually, for all of the claims that were filed in my neighborhood, they actually responded to 5% of them. So I'm 6 months into a business that from every outward appearance is going to skyrocket, and I'm hamstrung by nature. I spent 4 months and every penny I had rebuilding my distillery from nothing. And we relaunched in 2013. and got our distribution up to 22 states and 4 countries by 2015.
Unbelievable.
Then we,
Unbelievable.
then we had another unfortunate, but not nature that time.
Yep. Tell
Um,
us about that.
Oh, the short version is the brand had become so wildly popular by 2015. I got a call from one of the big boys, and I signed a deal for millions of dollars to take the brand national, and they reneged. And then in 2016, I signed a second deal to take the brand national, again for millions of dollars, and they reneged as well. I ended up homeless. I was homeless for a year and a half. And in the year and a half I was homeless, I was meeting with all of the executives of these giant liquor companies and having great conversations and something like, this is a great brand with a great track record and great packaging and sales. And this is, someone's gonna come along with $1 million and help you out with that. Good luck with that, kid. No one would step in. I have this very distinct memory of December 2017 of waking up to the feeling of snowflakes melting on my face, which sounds idyllic, except I was waking up outdoors in winter in New York City. And my first thought was not, I need to get somewhere warm. My first thought was, I need to charge my phone, because I was collecting money by working as a writer and a speaker. And I had an essay due that day. And I thought, if I miss my deadline, I won't have money to get an apartment. So the challenges have not been insignificant.
But you have overcome every single one. And that piece that you wrote, which I've read, is unbelievable. If you have not read, so we put out a binge on Jackie so that you guys could get to know him a little bit prior to today. But if you haven't read some of the things that he's written, he's one of the most gifted writers. You literally, when you're reading his work, you can smell the aromas in the kitchen. You can feel everything. It's unbelievable. Jackie, one of the things that has impressed me is your attention to detail. And I find that most people don't have great attention to detail. And so these are things that I've picked up randomly through our conversations over time and just getting to know you. The name of Sorel, not Sorrel, to me is fascinating. The size of the bottle, there's a reason for it. The reason why the font is like this, there's a reason for that. Jackie has, and as entrepreneurs, I mean, a lot of us are entrepreneurs, or if you're not an entrepreneur, I mean, you still have to be detail oriented. But Jackie's attention to detail is unbelievable. So start with the name. So the traditional name, Sorrel, to your product, Sorel, and then the bottle, the font, all that attention to detail that you put into it.
So Scotty, the joke I tell at this point is, you have to be crazy to do this, but going crazy is easy. Staying crazy takes commitment. I had no previous experience, not only as a food scientist, but as a package designer or as a liquor salesperson. I did not know what I was doing, but I am a quick study. I found out that all liquor shelves are a similar height. So in order to be the tallest thing on the shelf, you had to be just about 13.5 inches. I found out that liquor store owners dislike severely things that take up more than one space. So you had to be a certain width so that you will only take up the space that you earned on that shelf. And I found out that bartenders specifically hate so many bottles because most bartenders, because of the bottles that they're pouring from, will eventually develop carpal tunnel syndrome. I designed this bottle. I own the mat. I own the patents. I own the molds. And I designed it so that no matter where you pick it up from, it's going to feel good in your hands, even if your hands are wet. And you can see the logo from clear across the room. Now, the name is interesting. If you go to the Caribbean, they still make this drink called sorrel, Sorrel. Every Caribbean household makes it. They all believe this is the best version. Mine is the best version. But when I decided to make this into a product, I called it Sorrel for two reasons. The first is I have a speech impediment. I can't pronounce the letters R and L. So for me, trying to say sorrel is like trying to say rural or terror. It's an awful, awful word. But I was a student of the New York City public school system for 12 years. And the first eight years of school, after school, other kids got to go play. I had enunciation lessons to help manage my speech impediment. And here's one of the things that I learned. Words that end in a down sound are sad. You could be happy, or you could be happy. Sorrow is a sad word. Sorrel is happy, and I can pronounce it. So it is literally called Sorrel, so I don't sound like a dumbass every time I've got to say the name. The other true reason, and this is less funny, is sorrel is part of the public domain, and I can't trademark it. I can trademark Sorrel. So yeah, a lot of thought goes into it, and you try to head off the issues that you know will be coming down the pipe later.
I mean, if you guys don't follow Jackie specifically on Instagram, his Instagram posts they're beautiful. They're like works of art. And you think like, oh, this is a massive company with this huge marketing team, and that's not the case.
Nope.
I mean, it's not that Jackie doesn't have a team, but what they're putting out in terms of quality, from the product to their social media presence to every little thing being thought of, to me as a business person is unbelievable. Another thing you did, Jackie, that I thought was really cool is we had this little thing called the pandemic. Yes. And we all had to pivot. And some pivoted well and some didn't.
Yes.
And so what did you do during the pandemic to kind of keep momentum going?
I have a good friend named Yannick Benjamin, who is a restaurateur and sommelier. He is a disabled in a wheelchair. He lost the use of his legs in his early 20s. And he always says, start where you are, do what you can with what you have. I specifically remember when the word came down that California was closing all of its bars and restaurants. And that meant that the other states were going to follow pretty much immediately. And what I had was high-speed internet, a sizable collection, a sizable home bar collection, and a bunch of friends who were suddenly unemployed. My commitment is always to community. So my first thought was, number one, my friends who are bartenders need some form of income. Number two, there's suddenly a lot of people that are stuck home drinking. And number three, they probably still want to socialize, and they might not know how to make cocktails. So I was the first person to launch a virtual cocktail hour. We had, for a year and a half, the first year and a half of the pandemic, twice a day, 6 days a week, an East Coast and a West Coast happy hour. We had guest bartenders come in, and we had brands pay the bartenders to show them how to make cocktails. Everyone that was a member of the Zoom room had the opportunity to tip out. We put about $50,000 in the hands of bartenders during the pandemic. And that community still hangs out together. So it was an investment in community for me that was entirely worth it.
Yeah, unbelievable, unbelievable. One of my favorite things that you do on Instagram is, can Sorrel do this? And you'll find out that Sorrel can do everything.
Yeah.
It literally is like a Swiss Army knife. You know, so many people have good ideas, but they don't take the initiative to execute. Or if
Right.
they do take the initiative to execute, they run out of money, or they don't have people that believe in them. Tell everybody, for those who don't know, who's Fawn Weaver? Why does she believe in you so much? And tell us about that partnership, because I think it's beautiful.
Fawn Weaver is a New York Times best-selling author who is also the CEO of America's fastest growing whiskey company, Uncle Nearest. Uncle Nearest is based on the legacy of a man called Nearest Green, who was America's first Black master distiller. He's the man who taught Jack Daniels how to make whiskey. And the story was buried for 160 years. Fawn found out about the story around 2016 and became obsessed with it. And she found the members of his family, his descendants, and said, how do we honor this man? Should I write a book? Should we put on a TV show? What should we do? And his descendants said, the way to honor him is to make a whiskey the way he would have made it. It just so happens that the whiskey that Fawn makes, Uncle Nearest Premium Whiskey, is the most awarded whiskey the last 4 years in a row. They have won, I think at this point, over 400 medals in competition. It's astounding. They're the first African-American company, the African-American owned liquor company to break $100 million in sales. They're the fastest growing African-American company, the fastest growing whiskey company in the history of America, bar none. How is this relevant to Sorrel and myself? I might have mentioned that in 2020, I was still looking for investors for Sorrel, and I was actually in the middle of finalizing a negotiation with an investment group to bring Sorrel back to market. And they started to try to change the nature of our agreed on contract. So I did the thing that I'm really not good at and that I'm working on. I knew Fawn Weaver from the speaking circuit, and I reached out to Fawn and I said, Fawn, I've hit a stumbling block with my investment group. Can you offer any guidance? The next day we had a guarantee of funding. And since then, we have been under the Uncle Nearest Initiative, which is a $50 million fund that Fawn raised to help grow Black and minority-owned brands. And so far, it's been fantastic.
Absolutely beautiful. Jackie, what are you most proud of?
I am most proud of the fact that more people know my mother's and my father's and my grandparents' name today than did yesterday. I do everything I can to honor them every day of my life.
Love it. And what do you see as the future for your brand? I know you've talked about selling, and you have an interesting take on how much it would take. Talk to us a little bit about what you see as the future.
So this is a really good question. I have had a reporter ask me what my number is, as in when the companies come for you to sell, what will it go for? And I've made it clear that Sorrel is not for sale. And as long as I'm living, it never will be. And the reporter said to me, you're trying to tell me if someone came and offered you $1 billion, you'd say no? And my response was, what price do you put on the suffering of my ancestors? Because we deserve legacy. Because we could have done this hundreds of years ago if we'd had the opportunity. I have a chance that no one in my entire family line has ever had. I'm absolutely the first person in 20 generations who's got the chance to do this. I owe it to all of them. I owe it to all of them to build something that they cannot break. That said, Sorrel is proof of concept. And here's what I mean by that. Jack from Brooklyn is the holding company which owns Sorrel. It was founded on a simple theory, and that theory is how many other beverages out there are like this that have deep cultural significance to what's considered a small community and is made in someone's home by someone's grandmother that no one has figured out how to make shelf stable yet. So my job for the rest of my life will be to travel the world, meet interesting people, drink with them, and then find out whether or not these beverages are A, something that I can turn with my team of scientists into a stable product, B, if I can successfully tell the stories and market them, and most importantly, C, if I can find an individual from that culture to represent the brand, invest in the brand, so we are not culturally appropriating. So my goal will be to have a portfolio of brands like Sorel. There may or may not be other items for sale. I am not against making $1 billion in my lifetime, but Sorel will be the tentpole that holds up all the other brands.
Yep. I love it. I love it. So we're called the Outlier Project because we all identify as outliers. We all believe that anybody can be ordinary, but we all have the power to choose to be extraordinary. At some point in your life, you chose to live an extraordinary life. When did you realize you were an outlier?
5 years old.
Tell me more.
My grandfather had a saying. It's been drilled into me ever since we were children. He would say, good, better, best, never let it rest, till your good is better and your better is best. I heard that literally all my life. So I remember getting to my first day of first grade, and I was reading on a 12th grade level because my mom had read to me from the time I was a child. From the time I was 3 years old, my mom read to me. I could read at 4. I have my own library card. I would go to the library by myself, bring home stacks of books. I got to first grade and I was like, Mom, I think they put me in a special class because the other kids can't read. I didn't understand. Here's what I have come to appreciate about outliers. Averages are a real thing, but they can never count you in because you skew the average. You make all of the theoretical stuff that people want to be able to package everyone into convenient little boxes irrelevant. But outliers are the people who drive human progress. At a certain point, some outlier said, hey, maybe a round thing that we could attach to a cart would be easier than just hauling things around ourselves. At some point, some outlier said, hey, maybe if we take this wax and put a wick in it, we will have more hours of the day than when the sun goes down. At some point, some outlier said, hey, electricity, can we get it on our homes? Some outlier said, hey, telephones, TVs, all of these things, all of human progress was driven by one person who looked at the rest of the world and went, no, this sucks, we can do better. All the people on the screen are folks who are looking at some aspect of human life and going, nah, the rest of humanity doesn't know what they're doing. And I do. And I am going to contribute to all of society by making it better for everyone because they're all here. And I'm over here in the top of some graph somewhere, way off the charts. Way off the charts. That's what we need. That is what human progress needs. People who do not fit into what are considered societal norms, because the norms were never meant for you.
Totally
Outliers
agree.
change the world.
You are preaching to the choir, my friend. I love it. I love it. All right. So I have taken up too much of your time. We've got a bunch of people that would love to ask you questions.
Let's go.
And the first, we are going to Florida. Doug, you are up with the great Jackie Summers.
Oh, thank you, Scott. First off, happy Valentine's Day to the paddle. Big love for everybody. Love makes that world go round. That's for sure.
Yes.
Jackie, you are an absolute legend. I sound like Scott saying that, but now I know for sure. I am a consumer of the binge, which is awesome. And it is a vehicle for us who attend these to get up to speed with folks like yourself, which there's
Right.
none of because you broke the mold. so that we have an idea of who you are before we hear from you. And it was as I was reviewing some of the material in Binge that I read somewhere about the story that you alluded to, one of the many in your life, where you're faced with a diagnosis of essentially paralysis or death. And I need to reference what I read as the quote, so I don't get this wrong, because I'm going to ask you kindly to elaborate on it. If you could go just reflect on it, because to me, it spoke volume. It's very powerful.
Right.
I believe you said, you can't unmake your peace with death. Once you're there, you can't go back.
Doug, this is a great question. And this is a really fun story. So after I get my diagnosis, I consent to the surgery. I do the only thing that makes sense to me. I go on vacation. Me and 9 friends in a beach house in Cancun, and the best food and shopping costs with alcohol, just a great, great trip. And I remember waking up one morning before anyone else had shaken off the hangover and saying to myself, I want to see the sunrise over the ocean, because I'm probably going to die and I'm never going to have this chance again. And I grabbed a bottle of mezcal, kicked off my shoes, 6 a.m. I'm walking down the beach and watching the sunrise over the Gulf of Mexico, and I'm talking to death. And death had interesting things to say at 6 a.m. on half a bottle of mezcal and an empty stomach. The first thing you have to know about her is she's never wrong. You can't argue with her, and it's a her. And the second thing is she bears no malice. It is as regular a thing as the sun rising. Like, people live and people die. But the thing that struck me that Death said is, she said to me, Jack, I don't know why this has you so freaked out. It's not the first time I've come for you. This is just the first time you're paying attention. And Doug, I thought about it, and she was right. I've been shot. I've been in a catastrophic car accident. I've almost drowned twice. This isn't my second go around. As far as I'm aware of, this is at least my 5th go around. So I made peace with the idea that I'm going to die. And the beauty is, you can't unmake that peace. I know I'm going to die. I'm hoping it's not today. I'm hoping it's not anytime soon. So the question is, now that I know that I'm going to die, how do I choose to live? And that's everything.
Beautiful.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Doug.
Deeply moving.
We are staying in Florida. Randy, you're up with Jackie Summers.
Hey, Jackie, thank you for being here. My question, it's interesting. My question has to do with also when you were sick. My question was, because I'm getting older, I'm 53. I know more and more people that are getting sick and this and that. What were you thinking when you were rolling into the hospital for surgery that day?
So I'm 55, and it was 13 years ago. That morning, I have to tell you, Randy, I was calm like Hindu cows, because I knew for a fact that I was going to die, and I was okay with it. I figured I had a good run. What's funny, what's interesting is not what I was thinking before I went into surgery. What's funny is what happened after I came out. I go into surgery. I'm completely zen about this idea. I know that I'm not going to wake up. They give you the little shot that you're supposed to count backwards from 100, you get to 98, and you're knocked out. And then I was under the knife for 8 hours. Randy, my first memory after coming out of surgery was them wheeling me down the hallway on a gurney, and I'm singing Material Girl at the top of my lungs. Living and I'm a terror. True story. We get into the recovery room, and my nurse says, how do you feel? And I went, like a virgin. Anesthesia was wild. My nurse said to me, "Do you know your name?" I looked at her and I said, "I'm Lady Gaga." She says, "Sir, do you know who you are?" I mean, they're asking these questions because they're trying to see if you've come out enough from under the anesthesia to speak to your doctor. She says, "Sir, do you know who you are?" I go, "I realize I am not Lady Gaga. I'm Madonna." She says, "Do you have any weakness?" Randy, this is a question they ask you after spinal surgery because they don't know if you have permanent nerve damage. I didn't have any feeling beneath my rib cage. I couldn't wiggle my toes. I couldn't feel my feet. If I'd farted, I wouldn't have even known. I looked at her and I said, "Chocolate, whiskey, and raven-haired women." And by this time I realized she's cute and I'm a jerk. And I've got tubes up my nose and tubes up both arms. And I managed to somehow reach over and put my hand on her knee. And I say, "It's important for me that you understand that just because I came out of surgery singing Material Girl, King of Madonna, does not mean I don't like women." At which point she said, "Yeah, doc, you can talk to him now. He's okay." And my doc had one word for me. He said, "Benign." And the next morning I was standing and I think they were all very, very surprised. So I sort of feel like it's important to stay in that moment, whatever the moment is. And sometimes the moment sucks, but it's all you got. So if I think about it, I'm very much still in those moments, very easy to go back because when they happened, I was very present to them. I think the key is no matter what happens, pleasant or unpleasant, you have to be present. You have to be pleasant or unpleasant. You must be present to what's going on. Otherwise you miss it. Just be present to it. That's all.
Superb. Thank you, Jackie. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Randy.
Sunny in Arizona, you're up.
Hey, Jackie, thank you so much. Man, I'm driving between one appointment and another, and there was no way I was missing this. Probably not the safest thing because I'm like leaned in because I feel you are a communicator in a way that it feels like you're talking directly to us individually, which is a gift from being a communicator. My question for you is, I have found in my life that adversity can open the possibility for opportunity to have life breathed into it, if only if you are willing to have that courage to lean into it. And so all you've been through, all you've evolved through, all you have come out and come through, what areas of life are you still leaning into the uncomfortable or the stretch part so that you continue growing and evolving?
This is a really good question. And it's funny because I was actually managing this question earlier today, Sonny. I am grateful for the asshole I was 10 years ago who launched this company. I would not trust that guy to run my company today. I wouldn't. The person that you need to be when you found the company is not the person you need to be if you're going to run a successful company. So you have to figure out, how do I grow into this role? And I really did mean what I said earlier, Sonny. Going crazy is important. Staying crazy is really tricky. But what I have had to lean into, and the hardest thing I've ever had to do, is letting go. It is hard as a founder to let go. There was a time I did everything, and I will admit that I didn't do everything well. There's a time when I was making the product, bottling, labeling, filtering, doing sales calls, doing PR material, giving interviews, conducting education sessions, going around the country, launching all these markets. Nowadays, my job is A, to find incredibly talented people, B, who actually like to do stuff that I suck at, C, pay them well, D, find out what motivates them beyond remuneration. And then E, throw them the ideas and get out of the way. So I will throw an idea at my team. I'm off playing in the field somewhere, just being a crazy person. I throw this idea at my team. Hey, what if we did this? And then I back off and I get from my team, well, here's what it'll cost, and here's the timeline, and here's the cost of goods. Here's the gross profit ratio. Here's our means of distribution. Here's how we're marketing. Here's what's going to PR. And my rule is, come invite me back into the conversation when this is at 95%. When you're almost done, call me back. And if I have notes, yay. If not, then we just go forward. So the hardest part, the thing I'm trying to lean into right now, is continuing to let go. Founders want to control things. And founders want to control the people who they bring in. My job is to find really good people and trust them to do the good work. And trust as an adult is hard. We all have trust issues. It comes from childhood. But there's nothing like having a team that you trust that trusts you. So letting go is what I'm still working on. Thank you for that question.
It's a beautiful
Thanks,
evolution. Isabel in the UK, we needed to go out of the country. We're well, we weren't stuck in Florida, but we've got a lot from Florida. So Isabel, you're up.
Thank you so much. Hi, Jackie. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. Hi.
Great. I'm wanting to be so much more present than I have been. I have two 6-year-olds here. They've just rejected gnocchi, so I've moved on to the second option. And I had a question. Well, my first question is, please come to London, and please,
yes,
please let me help that somehow.
yes,
Facilitate whatever I can for you to get into people's homes with that idea, because that is magic.
We have that on the schedule for Q4 this year.
Okay. Then the other questions come out of Sonny's great question, actually, which I didn't plan to ask, but I'm going to ask now, because where I'm at is I don't have two 6-year-olds. I have one 6-year-old. I'm an actress by training, so I've always driven the business. I've always been solo effectively until I've joined a company of actors and then left them again. So there's always been that pattern of solo, team, solo, team, solo, team. As a coach, I'm solo, and I'm at the stage, thankfully, mainly at the moment, actually, due to this incredible community of people right here, making connections that are helping me to build. I want to be in the position you just described. I want to get out of the way of myself. I don't have that option at the moment because I have to do it. I have to do it all. I have to do the bottling and the labeling and the, in the context of my work. And so my question is, how do you make that step from being solo and effectively having autonomy over everything to then starting to hire people? Because I'm right on the verge of that, but I'm not trusting myself.
When I was a teenager, I read a book about entrepreneurship that gave me a tip that has pretty much guided everything I've done since then. Once you have your big idea, whatever it is, you need two things to be successful. You need other people's money and other people's experience. And the single most useful tool any entrepreneur can develop is the ability to convince other people why they should commit their time, their energy, their resources, their skill set, their money to your project. So the most important thing you can do right now is actually continue to build up and continue to learn how to convince people, to persuade people that what you're doing is the most important thing that could happen in their or anyone else's lives. You continue to do this, and the people who you're looking for will find you. Here's a true story. When I was almost ready to start looking for funding in 2011, I got a call back from a friend of mine who was a VP at Hearst Magazines. He said, "Don't tell anybody, but we're buying another media company. There's going to be overlap. There's going to be layoffs, but I want my people running my magazines. Come back, he says. Come work for me again. Mid six figures, corner office, 32nd floor overlooking Central Park. In my heart, I know I'm going to tell him no. I know this. But I take the meeting because he's a friend of mine. We're at this tiny burger joint in the Upper West Side of Manhattan. I reach into my bottle. I reach into my bag, pull out a bottle of Swill that I've made in my kitchen. I don't have labels because I don't have my licensing yet. I don't have a physical space yet. I just have me and my big ideas. But I'm describing these ideas to him. And as I'm talking, the guy at the table next to us stands up and he goes, so are you looking for investors? I stand up, I shake his hand, I tell him who I am and what I intend to do. I give him a business card, reach into my bag and pull out a second bottle because I know to be prepared. And I say, take this home, enjoy it with your family. If you're still interested in investing after you've tried it, we'll talk later on in the week. I didn't even look at his card. The next morning, I'm rifling through my wallet trying to figure out why the name Alexander Bernstein is so familiar. It's Leonard Bernstein's son, who runs the Bernstein Foundation, who became the first person to sign papers for us. And I say all of that to say, so much of your success is predicated on being able to build community. Part of what happens is we are always presented with these hero examples of humans that truthfully can be pretty remarkable, but what you don't see is their communities. All these people have communities that they are dependent on in order to become what they are. And I'm in the process of building my community. I'm heavily invested in my community. But entrepreneurship too often looks like it's a solo endeavor. It is always a communal effort. So the best thing that you can do is continue to invest in community and figure out how community can invest in you. It will come back.
Thank you so, so much. Amazing. Thank you so much.
I hope that was helpful.
All right, we're going to try to cram
yeah.
a whole bunch of questions into a very short period of time. Scott
Okay.
Garber in Colorado, you're up with Jackie.
Jackie, my man, what is going on?
What's up, Scott?
Man, I tuned into this one a little bit late, but man, the last 20 minutes have been just, I mean, shivers, man. A lot of the stuff that you say resonates, and I just wanted to call out one thing, right? You talk a lot about control. It's one of the things that you're working on, right? And so control and death have a huge correlation, right? And so I'm curious, you know, as control to me has become this sort of illusion, and death teaches us that we're in control of just a few things in this life. And so as someone who's had near-death experiences, I do believe that that's the unlocking of living, is actually knowing that you're not in control of really anything in this world, maybe minus your breath, right? Those are one of the few things that you have control over. But you made mention that that death was a woman, and I'm curious, why? Is there any correlation to Mother Nature, or where did that come from, and what was that experience like for you?
I'm pretty sure death manifests differently to people relevant to their culture. I'm pretty sure that this manifestation for me was specific to where I was geographically and who I was at the time. I don't know that she would manifest that way again. I'm pretty sure death is a universal concept. But in that moment in time, in that specific place in time, death was definitely a she. Again, everyone's drawing on their own cultural references. That's what manifested for me in that moment. It might be different for other people.
Really powerful. Now, I look forward to further conversation. You're doing great work, man.
Thank you so much, Scott.
Lindsay Elizabeth in Indiana, you're up.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. So I just see this all like your mastery, the path of mastery of the human experience. And so then when you said Sorel and the ascending melody at the end, like descending melody that makes you feel sad, like you don't want to end down, like let's make people feel happy. We want ascending melodies. So while you're resonating with your emotion on choosing that, like how do you know for you, how does your path and your correct answers for these moments as you create your life and make these decisions, like, what does that feel like for you? And then what does it feel like for you when it's like, that seems like a headspace, that seems like a good answer, but it's not my answer?
I try to stay flexible. I try to stay as flexible as I can, knowing that nothing rigid lasts. We tend to bury ourselves into our perspectives and use them as guidelines when really they're supposed to be way, way more fluid than what they are. It's an easy thing to, again, I'm speaking to outliers here, so you all know this. Apologize for saying the obvious thing, but it's an easy thing to take what you've always been told and assume that's the way. I think it's the responsibility of everyone on the screen to find out in their own particular unique experience, how was what I was told not actually really applicable? Like, it might have worked for someone at some point in time, but it's not really working here, and we can change things. So I really believe that it's super important to continue to challenge the status quo. And that is at least until all of us have an equal shot at doing the things we want to do in our lives.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Was that helpful?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, good.
Jackie, I want to be mindful of your time. Can we sneak in a couple more questions?
Yes, we can.
You sure?
Yes.
All right. Bruce, you're up. Bruce, you're
Jack,
looking good today, my man.
well, that's because I have an on-camera interview later for a client. That's the only reason. Jackie, I love what you have said. You're my favorite guest, hands down. And we've had great guests. I have so many questions, but I'll try to cut to the chase. Can you connect the dots for us about how you went from homelessness to this massive success? I mean, there have been so many crazy twists and turns in your life. I'm still trying to wrap my brain around it, but that one to me, it doesn't compute. Connect the dots.
There's a simple thing that I had to learn, and I learned it the hard way, and I hope no one else has learned the way I learned it, Bruce. You are not your company. You are not your brand. You have value, intrinsic, not relative to the success or failure of whatever you do. I hit a point where the business aspect of my life blew up in my face. And the ramifications of that made my personal life unmanageable. But I knew I was me still. The brand can succeed or fail. I'm still me. The brand can make money or lose money. I'm still me. I am not the value of my brand. My value as a human being is intrinsic. And Bruce, when I was literally living on the street and scratching together change to go to these meetings with billionaires, that was my thinking. My thinking was, these people are worth exactly what I'm worth. We all have equivalent value as human beings, and I cannot allow the success or failure in a commercial system to determine how I feel about myself. And that's super important. You are you, no matter how your brand or your company does. That's what worked for me.
Absolutely incredible. Two more questions. Steve Thomas and then Yarrow, you are our cleanup hitter. So get ready. Steve, you're up with Jackie, and then we're going to Yarrow, and then it's a wrap.
Thanks, Scott. Jackie, great story. I mean, I really appreciate you sharing with us, everything that's happened to you in your life and your passion. My question is, you've overcome a lot of challenges, both health-wise and business-wise. You've shared a lot about how you handled the healthcare challenges and some of the business challenges, but do you have any advice? I mean, I think the story about you sharing that the hurricane wiped out your business, what was your mindset and how did you overcome what, would knock a lot of people out for a long time? How did you handle that?
I'm a practicing Taoist. And as part of my religious practice, I speak with my ancestors on a regular basis. This is going to take a second. Is it okay? Is okay, Scott? I'll keep it as brief as possible.
Absolutely.
We know energy can't be created or destroyed. Things are, and then they are not as far as human beings go. So the energy that was my ancestors, still exists somewhere, somehow in the universe. 1 minute you are a living, breathing body generating heat, electricity, and the next you're not. Where did it go?
Right.
I don't think the universe is giving to waste. So if the universe is not disposing of the energy that was my parents and my grandparents and all my forebears, why would they get rid of the petabytes of accumulated experience that was them? So I talk to them all the time. And it gives me perspective, because I can actually go to my ancestors and say, well, you know, I really need to do a $10 million raise. And the response I get back from them is, really, no one's trying to hang you today? You don't have problems.
That's a real challenge.
Yes. My parents, when they bought the house that I was raised in, they weren't just the only black family on the block, the only black family around for miles. In Queens, New York, there was something that they called pioneering back then. It might mean that someone ended up being crossed on your lawn to get you out of the neighborhood. I have no idea. I cannot ever really understand the weight of all the sacrifice that was made in order for me to do what I do. But if it's a question of how I continue to move forward, I talked to the ancestors and they're all like, we did this so that you could move forward. Things were harder, and it's not just my job to capitalize on their sacrifice. It is my responsibility to make the mountain higher for everybody who comes after. I get to live in the light of day. It's my job to make the day brighter. So that's what gets me through, is knowing that A, it was harder in the past, and B, I have a responsibility to make it easier in the future.
Yeah, adversity is a gift. And one of the things that I absolutely love about Jackie is he's never a victim. Never a victim. Yarrow, this is a big job. You gotta take us home. You're a
Okay,
cleanup hitter.
so it's the buildup. I feel like Sunny asked a question, Steve asked a question, but I'm gonna just go a little bit deeper, Jackie. All of this has been fabulous. Your ability to narrate a story has been spoken, amazing. Where it has come from in your history past this lifespan, and the perseverance, resiliency, the humility that you have around all of that is just fabulous. So thank you for your time, for your insight, everything that you're doing. Truly inspired. As far as maybe just another nugget. So my question was around, certainly you've had challenges. We've all had our versions, and it's been my experience that we tend to grow the most through those challenges. I think your stories are prime examples of that. More challenges are inevitable in all of our futures, but looking back through your experience in these and all of the insight and growth that you've experienced through that, is there an additional nugget that you could leave us with that would help us to grow through maybe the times less challenging intentionally, while we prepare for those growth trajectories that are inevitable?
Yes, and I can make this super personal. Thank you. That's a great question, Yarrow. I am in Detroit at the moment. I was in Brooklyn yesterday talking to my sweetheart, who is the chief medical officer for the state of Michigan. And we were talking about Valentine's Day, and I said, why don't I just come? Usually we spend 3 or 4 weeks planning out, here was where we're gonna be, here's the schedule, here's this, here's that, here's a greater way. And she said, we have now. Why wait? Someone said this to me literally yesterday. Someone asked if I could give them any suggestions as to how to start doing this. Is like, you have now. Now is what counts. This exact moment in time will never, ever be repeated. And the problem, as Buddha said 4,000 years ago, the problem is people think they have time. The moments of respite, the moments of peace are meant to be opportunities to prepare but when that piece is going to be removed, because it is absolutely going to go away at some point and then return. Lao Tzu said, again, 4,000 years ago, it's better to be a warrior in a time of farming than a farmer in a time of war. Now is when you have. Now is the only thing that really counts. And if you do, there's a principle in Taoism called Wu Wei, where, and it's confusing at first, it basically says by doing nothing, all things are accomplished. There's something I'm supposed to do right in this moment. At this moment, the most important thing I can do in the whole world, Yarrow, is try to think of what's the answer? What is the question that we're trying to address? If I'm focused on this moment, all the other moments will take care of themselves. This moment and the next, stay in the moment. Ground yourself to the idea that everything you do now reverberates off into the future. And what you want to do is you want to make future you happy that you were paying attention yesterday.
Beautiful. My friend Jesse Itzler always says, be where your feet are. And that is exactly what you were saying. Now is the only time. Be present. And thank you for being present for us. So guys, please support Jackie, and you can support Jackie by supporting him on social media, where he does a phenomenal job. I call them package stores. Some people call them liquor stores. If Sorel is in your local package store or liquor store, just go pick up a bottle or gift somebody a bottle. It's unbelievable. If not, you can order online, which I do because it's not yet in Connecticut, but that's coming quick. So anyway, Jackie, man, you know how much I love you. You know how much I appreciate you. This has been an incredibly impactful time, and I am super grateful for you, my friend.
Scott, an honor. Thank you for the opportunity. And thank everyone who tuned in today. Thank you so much.
Thank
if there's
you.
anything I can do that contributes to your success, please reach out and let me know.
Awesome. Jackie, you're the best. Thank you, my
See
friend.
y'all soon. Bye-bye.